Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 It's me again. Pardon? No. So today we'll today we can discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 9, Text 42. Maybe. Aham Atmatmanam Pardon. Tata Aham Atmatmanam Tata Reshta San Preyasam Api Reshta San Preyasam Api Ato Mai Ratim Kuryad Ato Mai Ratim Kuryad Dehadhir Yatkarte Priyaha Dehadir Yatkarte Priyaha Ahamat Matmanam Tataha Reshta San Preyasamapi Ato Mairatam Kuryad Dehadir Krite Priya Ahamat Matmanam Tataha Reshta San Preyasamapi Ato Mairatam Kuryad Dehadir Yakrite Priya. Please. Synonyms. Aham. I am. Atma. The super soul. Atmanam. Of all other souls. Tata. Director. Reshta. The dearest. Son. Being. Prayasam. Of all dear things. Api. Certainly. Atah. Therefore. Mai. Unto me. Ratim. Attachment. Kuryat. One should do. Deva Adi. The body and mind. Yatkrite. On whose account? Priya. Very dear. Translation. I am the super soul of every individual. I am the supreme director and the dearest. People are wrongly attached to the gross and subtle bodies, but they should be attached to me only. Responsibly, please. I am the super soul of every individual.
I am the super soul of every individual.
I am the supreme director.
I am the supreme director
And the dearest.
and the dearest.
People are wrongly attached
People are wrongly attached
to the gross and subtle bodies,
to the gross and subtle bodies,
but they should be attached
but they should be attached
to me only.
to me only.
Srila Prabhupada's purport. The Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, is the dearest in both the conditioned and liberated states. When a person does not know that the Lord is the only dearmost object, then he is in the conditioned state of life. And when one knows perfectly well that the Lord is the only dearmost object, he is considered to be liberated. There are degrees of knowing one's relationship with the Lord, depending on the degree of realization as to why the Supreme Lord is the dearmost object of every living being. The real reason is clearly stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Mamai Vangsar Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. The living entities are eternally parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. The living entity is called the Atma, and the Lord is called the Paramatma. The living entity is called Brahman, and the Lord is called Parabrahman, or the Parameshvara, Ishvara Paramakrishna. The conditioned souls who do not have self-realization accept the material body as the dearmost. The idea of the dearmost is then spread all over the body, both concentrated and extended. The attachment for one's own body and its extensions, like children and relatives, is actually developed on the basis of the real living entity. As soon as the real living entity is out of the body, even the body of the most dear son is no longer attractive. Therefore, the living spark or eternal part of the Supreme is the real basis of affection and not the body. Because the living entities are also parts of the whole living entity, that supreme living entity is the factual basis of affection for all. One who has forgotten the basic principle of his love for everything has only flickering love because he is in Maya. The more one is affected by the principle of Maya, the more he is detached from the basic principle of love. One cannot factually love anything unless he is fully developed in the loving service of the Lord. In the present verse, stress is given to focusing love upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word kuryat is significant here. This means one must have it. It is just to stress that we must have more and more attachment to the principle of love. The influence of Maya is experienced by the part and parcel spiritual entity, but it cannot influence the supersoul of the Paramatma. The Mayavadi philosophers, accepting the influence of Maya on the living entity, want to become one with the Paramatma. But because they have but because they have no actual love for the Paramatma, they remain ever entrapped by the influence of Maya and are unable to approach the vicinity of the Paramatma. This inability is due to their lack of affection for the Paramatma. The rich miser does not know how to utilize his wealth. Therefore, in spite of his being very rich, his miserly behavior keeps him everlastingly a poor man. On the other hand, a person who knows how to utilize wealth can quickly become a rich man, even with a small credit balance. The eye and the sun are intimately related because without sunlight, the eyes are unable to see. But the other parts of the body, being attached to the sun as a source of warmth, take more advantage of the sun than do the eyes. Without possessing affection for the sun, the eyes cannot bear the rays of the sun. Or in other words, such eyes have no capacity to understand the utility of the sun's rays. Similarly, the empiric philosophers, despite their theoretical knowledge of Brahman, cannot utilize the mercy of the Supreme Brahman because they lack affection. So many impersonal philosophers remain under lasting under the influence of Maya. Because they indulge in theoretical knowledge of Brahman, they do not develop affection for Brahman, nor do they have any scope for development of affection because of their defective method. A devotee of the sun god, even though devoid of eyesight, can see the sun god as he is, even from this planet, whereas one who is not a devotee of the sun cannot even bear the glaring sunlight. Similarly, by devotional service, even though one is not on the level of a jnani, one can see the personality of Godhead within himself due to his development of pure love. In all circumstances, one should try to develop love of Godhead, and that will solve all contending problems. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Jakrapatamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinataram Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Pancha Kalpa Karubhishcha Kripasindho Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Ahamatmanam Tata Preshta Samprayasanapi Ato Mayuratum Ratin Kuriya Dehahir Yakatevriya. I am the super soul of every individual. I am the supreme director and the dearest. People are wrongly attached to the gross and subtle bodies, but they should be attached to me only. So here, Krishna is making a very strong point. What's dear to us is what we perceive as close. So our body is very dear to us because we identify with it. It seems very close to us. It's the closest thing to us. Our families, husbands, wives, children, moms, dads, cousins, aunts, uncles, they're close to us. Mom and dad, husband or wife and kids, even the closest of all. Cousins are a little more distant, often. But a little bit, we hold them a little less dear than our own body. Generally, I think. I don't think we can make that a hard and fast rule. Some people are simply more selfless than, but the kind of typical conditioned soul holds his or her body more dear even than the closest relatives. And then our country people, the fellow Americans or whatever. So the farther away we get, the more diluted that identification, that affection becomes. But here Krishna is making a really strong point. I'm even closer to you than your body. I'm right there in your heart. I've been following you, witnessing everything that you do since beyond time. Anadi karma. Bhakti Notaka sings, Anadi karma Hawaii. I've fallen into this ocean of death, this motion of material existence, and enjoying and suffering due to karma endlessly. Well, not endlessly, beginninglessly. There's not really a beginning. There is an end. But Krishna, and this is the influence of Maya, that this illusion that I'm this body. I mean, this is what I see when I look in the mirror. This is what I feel when I hit my little toe on the table leg or something like that. So this is, but he's saying, no, I'm even closer to you than that. Suhridam Sarvabhutam, as he says at the end of the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. I'm the dearmost friend of every being. So he's saying, I'm even closer. And if you want to learn to love, first of all, you need to learn to love me, because I'm the basis of all affection. Prabhupada cites this verse from 15th chapter, Mamai Vangsha Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. So the living entities are parts and parcels. Prabhupada uses that phrase interestingly. It is kind of a unique, idiosyncratic use of that verse. It uses it as a noun phrase. It's generally in English, it's an adjective phrase, meaning of the same substance, same kind of thing. So that use is there also. That's also implied. That's when we say that such and such a thing is a part and parcel of something else. It means it's like kind of one with it. But Prabhupada also uses it in the sense of unction, and so that's how he uses it as a noun phrase, that noun phrase. So we're made of the same thing as Krishna, just very, very, very tiny, very tiny portions. And so we should be able to identify most closely with him, more closely with him than with the body of my wife or anybody else. As I said, it gets more diluted. And then we see in this purport, Srila Prabhupada pretty closely follows Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He makes the same points in a little different language. So Prabhupada talks about in the purport about different degrees of self-realization. And to the extent that we've been able to cultivate love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to that extent we'll actually be able to love others because we'll identify them with him. And we'll be able to identify them actually, their actual selves with ourselves. I think I cited the other day Chanaka Pandit's maxim from his Niti Shastra. Matravat Padadadeshu Padadravyaniloshtava Atmavat Sarvabhuteshu Yapashiti Sapandita. Here's how a wise person sees. Matravat Padadadeshu. You don't identify with women or for women, men, unless that's your, for enjoyment, for your own enjoyment, unless that's your spouse, your partner. Everyone else, like mom, untouchable. Pada dravyani loshkava. Other people's pada, others, dravya stuff, loshkava, like garbage in the street. This was just yesterday, wasn't it? That's why it sounds so familiar. However, and so we don't identify with other stuff. We see somebody with a really cool motorcycle, and it's not wise to think, oh, I got to have that motorcycle. No, that's his motorcycle or her motorcycle. That's somebody else's house. It's not fair. It doesn't make real sense to try to identify with that any more than it makes real sense, and it shows real wisdom to identify with someone else's wife. It's just trouble. However, there's a term. It says, Atmavat Sarvabhuteshu. We should identify with those things that happen to other living entities, with their pleasure and their pain. Because it's the same kind of pain that we go through. If someone's suffering heartbreak, and we've suffered heartbreak, we know what that's like. There are some things that some people can't identify with. For example, like my hearing loss and tinnitus. Nobody can see that. That's something only I know. Or when I get a migraine. Nobody can see that except for maybe my grouchiness. So I try very hard not to make those migraines, communicable, contagious. So I try to be really cool when I'm around people. I can feel sorry for myself when I'm by myself. But generally, we identify, we see somebody going through something and we understand, oh yeah, I have a sense of what that's like. And so you empathize with them, you feel with them, you feel into them. That's compassion, feeling with, feeling into. But so that's possible. There's some love possible there, and in spiritual life, there's certainly love possible among devotees. We see in Upadeshamrita the 6 exchanges of love. Priti Lakshana. Priti means affection or love, and Lakshana means aspects. So we see these 6 aspects of love. Revealing our minds in confidence, hearing confidences, instructing confidentially, sharing prasadam, sharing gifts with each other. These are exchanges of affection. These are natural exchanges of affection. We don't really need to teach people how to do this. Taking food together is a very intimate thing. Right? We do this with our families. We do this with our friends. Well, I don't know if we do. Anyway, we used to. Nowadays, we do it with our screens, I guess, sometimes. Who may be more dear to us than all the others in some instances. But Krishna is saying, first of all, become attached to me. Then the attachment, the real attachment, the legitimate attachment to everyone else will actually be possible. Otherwise, if we're an illusion, and I'm thinking Stephen's this like nice-looking young guy who's nice to me, and somebody else is not so much, so I can like Stephen and I don't have to like that other person. That's Maya. We see ourselves as the center of the universe and things as dear to us on the basis of how much they're able to gratify my senses. So the baby really loves mommy because she's got those nice soft things with the warm, sweet milkies inside. So she's really, really dear to the baby. Dad, he's a weirdo. thinks he can get me with those funny faces. Srila Prabhupada also talks about the Mayavadi's understanding. I was going to say perception, but I don't think that's the actual thing. Srila Prabhupada refers to it as theoretical knowledge. They're kind of abstract understanding of the Paramatma, but they don't have real experience of the Paramatma because they don't have affection for the Paramatma. They want to identify with the Paramatma in the sense of becoming the Paramatma. Just had like 2 or 3 not so great examples flashed in my mind of people wanting to be psyched. There was, back in the 90s when Bill Clinton was running for president, there was a famous picture of him. What is that? Some American Legion boys government thing or something like that, where he met President Kennedy when he was 16 or something, 15 or 16 or something like that. And he's shaking President Kennedy's hand, and everybody's thinking, oh yes, he's looking very admiringly at President Kennedy, but I always thought what he's probably thinking is, I want to be you. I want to live in this house, sit behind that desk, get the girls. That kind of thing. That's how the Mayavadis, that's their understanding of the Paramatma. That's their idea of identifying with the Paramatma. But we get a whole different idea of identifying. Prabhupada talks here in this verse in his purport about loving everything. And building, as we are, on what we heard in the second chapter about how everything, if we have the right vision, is Krishna, then we can love everything. But if we see it separate from Krishna somehow, then we're just calculating. We're just always calculating. What can I get out of this? What can I get out of this person? What can I get out of this circumstance? What can I get out of getting this job? Some prestige, nice corner office, lots of money. But those things, those things all come and go. So Krishna says, if you want real substantive love, real substantial love, first love me. Manmana bhava madbhakta. We were just hearing yesterday evening in Bhagavad Gita overview class that Krishna says he winds up his instructions in the Bhagavad Gita with two instructions. Just love me. And how can you do that? By surrendering to me. That will activate that love. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Jaiva Dharma says that Sharanagati, the 6 aspects of surrender, that is the external manifestation of Shraddha, of faith. Faith is manifested by surrender. If we trust somebody, we give themselves to them. The more we trust them, the more freely we give.
Jai Shri Panchatattva Ki.
We might think sometimes of those team building exercises that sometimes haven't worked. We did this when I was teaching at Hawaii Community College. I think we began every semester with one of these things. We'd have like a couple days of meetings before classes started. And so I think we'd start with some team building exercise on the first day of the meetings. And inevitably they included the trust fall, right? You know what the trust fall is? You stand up straight, close your eyes, somebody stands behind you, and you just lean back, all the way back, until they catch you. You got to do it. I mean, if you're standing there, well, that means, what are you thinking about the gal behind you? This is a little weird. So if we trust somebody, if we trust Krishna, then that's manifested in our surrender. We take shelter of him in the 6 ways that are described in the Shastra. Only accepting things that are favorable for culturing that trust, that affection, and neglecting things that don't. Seeing him as our exclusive maintainer and being convinced, firmly convinced, that he will protect me in all circumstances. Atmanikshepa or Atmanivedana, completely surrendering, giving up all my own personal interest in favor of his interest. And dainya or humility. Thinking, especially in the face of the Lord, I'm really, really small, very insignificant. So this is something that the Mayavadis can't do. Because, it's interesting, they think that everything we see is a manifestation of Maya. Nevertheless, they're completely caught up in Maya because, as Srila Prabhupada points out, their identification with Brahman or with Paramatma is only theoretical. It's just an idea that they bat around among themselves. I am Brahman, but they're thinking, I'm the Brahman. Meanwhile, the guy's going to get cancer and get sick and die. What kind of Brahman is that? So, this affection is the whole thing. This, affection for the Lord, because we know the Lord's affection is there for us, unconditionally. He's always there. And if we actually turn to him, generally, the Upanishads describe the 2 birds, as one as the putative enjoyer, and the other as the witness. But when the enjoyer thinks, wait a minute, this is not such a hot deal. All of a sudden the fruits are out of season, or got a sour one or something like that, and you happen to turn to the witness bird, you might get some guidance from him. But he is the closest to us. He should be the dearest to us. And that's the point that Krishna is making here. That if we want to be happy, we have to cultivate our affection for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that actually connects us with the Paramatma. The Paramatma is a manifestation of an expansion from, whatever, a couple steps removed, for dealing with the material world. But when we actually develop affection for Krishna, he takes that place in our heart. He becomes closest to us. He becomes dearmost. In whatever form we're able to appreciate him. And that'll be different for everybody. And everybody has a different relationship with Krishna, just as we have different relationships with each other. And Krishna, he's a Kila Rasamrita Murti. He can handle that. He's the reservoir of love, the reservoir of pleasure. He can reciprocate both in kind and in quantity with whatever love we give him. Rasaraj. He's the king of love. Of course, then he finds, he's thinking, I'm supposed to be Rasaraj, but when I have some experience of Srimati Radharani's love for me, then I just kind of my circuits pop. I don't understand that. That's something I can't experience. She's experienced something. So then he has to appear as Lord Chaitanya. So anyway, the big point is that, this is, other than a, and the, perhaps love and affection you'll find it to be the most frequently appearing words in this purport. And they're all meant, as Krishna says in the verse, they're meant for him. They should be attached to me only. And then the love for everything and everyone else that's natural to the soul will appear. Then we can be happy. If we're attached to all the wrong things, if we're looking, what was the country song? Looking for love in all the wrong places. That's the story of our lives. So now we have, by some good fortune, we have an opportunity to seek love at its source. To find that the actual object of love, and ourselves be the receptacles of love for him, and his love for us be the objects of his love for us. And then our love for each other everything will fall into place as it should. I'm going to stop here. And if there are any quick questions.
A quick question. Since Krishna is situated in our heart as Paramatma, if we have an artificial or mechanical heart installed, is Krishna still there?
You should go there and take a look. Other questions or comments?
I really identified with what you're saying. I came late. I'm sorry, but I was.
No, we're happy you're here at all.
Yes,
there's nothing to apologize for.
I just was thinking about how you're saying love Krishna because Krishna is everything, and so that's what connects us all. And I had this kind of profound experience before I came to Krishna to become a devotee. I was hitting rocks out on the beach with a stick, and I kept missing and missing and missing. I hadn't done it in a long time, But
like baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was with one of my childhood friends, and it's like, this is way harder than I remember. And I remember thinking to myself that I'm gonna think that I'm this rock, and really when I'm reconnecting, I'm just actually bringing myself back to myself. And really that concept, it's not me, it's that I'm Krishna, or Krishna is within me, and I'm blessed for that, and everything else is too. And what happened was very profound. It hit like 50 in a row. Boom, boom, this concept that I was bringing myself back to myself. And I've actually done that several other times, and when you really try and reconnect with the universe around you that Krishna allows you to be part of, it's a very powerful and profound experience, and really magical things can happen.
Yeah, and Krishna tells us here that the key to doing that, connecting back to yourself, is to find your real self, which is that part and parcel of Krishna, and thereby connecting with him. Then we're actually connected with everything else. Yeah, it's nice. Now I'm going to be looking for sticks and rocks when I go to the beach. Anything else, real quickly? Okay, thank you all so much for your patience. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.